Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the continuation of the Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Monday, July 8th, 2019. I will go ahead and turn it over to Councilman Deal now. Oh. Everybody, please stand for the flag. Salute for the flag. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Coyle. Councilmember Deal.
Here.
Councilmember Gomez.
Here.
Councilmember Joshi.
Present.
Councilmember Lombardi.
Here.
Councilmember Patil.
Here.
Councilmember Sandelsky.
Here. We will now turn the meeting over to Councilman Deal, and then Councilman Lombardi will continue with the instructions.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming out. This is our third Committee of the Whole meeting. The first two, just to summarize, has yielded lots of information and given us a bit more direction. What we would like to do now is I want to turn this over to Councilman Lombardi, and we do need to go into a short executive session for just a little bit after that. So, Councilman Lombardi, I know you wanted to go through the kind of the rules, the routines, and the regulations.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Deal. As Councilman Deal indicated, tonight we're holding the third Committee of the Whole proceeding. There were individuals that were subpoenaed to come in and provide testimony as to what, if any, knowledge they possess regarding the racial flyer that was distributed in November of 2017. I know that we have one witness here to testify, and I'm going to go over some instructions about this process. This will be a question and answer session. There's a court reporter present, and the court reporter will swear you in. So although you're in council chambers, your answers are still considered sworn testimony and have the same effect as if you were testifying in court. So it's important that you approach this proceeding with the same degree of seriousness as you would if you were testifying today in front of a judge and a jury. There are certain rules that should be followed. First, listen to the question. If you don't hear or understand the question by any of the committee members, let them know, and I'm sure that committee member will repeat or rephrase the question. We don't want you to start to answer if you're not sure what the question was. We want to know what you know as well as what you do not know. This is not an exam or a test. We know that this is a flyer that was sent out in November of 2017, just under 2 years ago. So if you do not know the answer to a question, it's perfectly acceptable to say, I don't remember or I don't know. There's a difference, however, between, we just ask that you don't guess. But there's a difference between a guess on the one hand and a reasonable estimate or an approximation. So if you're able to answer the question with a reasonable estimate or an approximation, we would ask that you do so. Just identify your answer as an approximation or an estimate so you're not held to an exact answer. If at any time you feel you were cut off, just let us know and we'll allow you to complete the answer to the question. If at any time you feel that you need a break, although we don't anticipate this taking very long, if at any time you feel you need a break, just ask us and we'll take a break. We just ask that you finish the answer to the question if one is pending before we go on break. Since the court reporter is here, we have to, all our answers have to be oral. So if your answer is yes, say yes. If it's no, say no, as opposed to a shrug of the shoulders, movement of the head, things of that nature. And if you didn't understand any of the questions or the instructions, please let me know and I'll repeat or rephrase any of the instructions that I went over. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, you have a resolution to read it. Motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Whereas Article 6 of the Open Public Meeting Act provide a public body may hold a closed session, whereas the Township Council will during this meeting enter into discussion for the following matter, purpose of contract. Whereas the matters to discuss in closed session are to remain in the strict confidence of all council members for furtherance of the fiduciary duties of the Township of Edison. Now there be it resolved. Matters discussed at this meeting will be released to the public when reasons for discussing upon them are in closed session no longer exist.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Deal.
Yes?
Councilmember Gomez.
Yes.
Councilmember Joshi.
Yes.
Councilmember Lombardi.
Yes.
Councilmember Patel.
Yes.
Councilmember Sandusky.
Yes.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, proceed.
Council President, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience with this. We have Mr. Bagia here, who's here tonight to share information with us. But before that, can we kind of look at where we are with who was invited tonight and where we are with that? Can everybody hear me all right? Okay. Can we get a rundown? Because I know we asked 4 people to come tonight, and we have 1. Can we get a rundown from where we are?
That's correct. That's correct, Councilman. Jerry Shee, Mahesh Bagia, Cesar Suarez, as well as Sherrick Ahmad were subpoenaed to be here tonight. We received a response from Jerry's attorney on July 3rd stating that he was not going to be in attendance due to a vacation apparently planned as far back as March, and that he would be unable to attend as he'd be traveling abroad tonight. And we learned this afternoon that Sherrick Ahmad would not be in attendance due to his attorney having a rescheduled flight, although it wasn't entirely clear where the attorney was actually on today's date, not despite being specifically asked, Councilman.
Okay, and Cesar Suarez?
We were informed this afternoon as well that he was not going to be in attendance by him directly because he was in the process of retaining an attorney.
Okay. I said this at the second meeting. One of the things that we did not anticipate when we started this, and with these committees of the whole, they're very rare. You really don't know a lot of times exactly how it's going to go. One of the things that has happened is we have had a little bit of trouble, or it hasn't really been easy getting people in to testify. Our first meeting, we were able to have 3 or 4 or 5 people testify. That went pretty well. I don't know if any of them had lawyers, but since that initial meeting, with the exception of the postal inspector who came and provided us a lot of information, we are having difficulty getting the folks here. Now, again, this committee, this group, has not accused anybody of anything. This is information gathering. So I'm curious as to what our next step may be to compel these folks to come here. I know they're saying, well, I'm traveling, I'm doing this, I'm here, I'm that. I look out in the audience and I see the folks all here. I've seen them all before. You know there's a meeting, you come to the meeting. So the fact that, you know, it seems like we're pulling teeth to get people just to share information with us, my question becomes, what's our next step? How do we get folks here? How do we do that? I know we subpoenaed people, and I appreciate Mr. Bagia being here tonight, but the other folks aren't. And, you know, how many times do they give us excuses or some type of reason why they can't be here? That's, to me, I don't really understand that. That's curious to me. So maybe I'll pose that question to the lawyers and say, what's our next step to get some of the folks? I mean, we've been asking Jerry Shee to come here since the thing started, you know, a couple of months ago. We haven't been able to have him come here. Sherrick Ahmad knew about this meeting months ago. He's not here tonight. Cesar Suarez, that person that we just kind of don't know really, nobody really seems to know, well, we don't know, is not here tonight. Counselor, what's our recourse here? How do we get the folks to come and share information? Being, again, that no one's been accused of anything. We're just information gathering. But it seems to me that everybody is, a lot of people are getting lawyers and not coming when we're trying to do our best just to get folks here.
Well, Councilman, the subpoena is essentially issued on behalf of a court, and the next step would be to take that matter to a court to enforce the subpoena and to hold someone effectively in contempt of court should they not to continue to adhere to the directives of the subpoena. There does appear to be some gamesmanship in the response to our subpoenas, given the timeliness or lack of timeliness thereof, given those responses. And I do think that additional negotiations, locking people to a date certain for which there is a backstop of legal judicial process to see that those subpoenas are enforced would be a prudent approach.
Okay. And Counselor, I want to make sure that on our end, we're being fair to all the guests, all the people we're inviting, that we provide the adequate communication necessary. So we're not springing anything on anybody, that they are given advance notice of the meetings, that we reach out to them. Today, I received 2 11th hour refusals or denials or we're not coming. Today, this was received. We know that we moved this meeting back from the 27th to July 8th so that we could put things in place. This was no secret, so thank you for saying that. I would like to make a motion that if these folks are not going to comply with the subpoenas, that we take the next step, and if that's court-ordered or whatever it is, that we get them here to testify.
I'll second that motion, Councilman Deal.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Again, I want to thank Mr. Bagia for being here today. I guess at this time, can we have Mr. Bagia sworn in?
I do? Okay. Would you raise your right hand, please, sir? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
So help you God?
tell the truth, yep.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Mahesh, thank you for coming. Mahesh, I recognize the gentleman next to you. I know he's been in these council chambers before. Can you identify the person with you tonight?
I got that, Councilman. My name is Frank Fusco. I'm an attorney, and I'm here on behalf of Mr. Bagia, who would like to start the proceedings off by reading a statement.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Fiscal. Good evening to all members of the committee, councilor, and everyone else attending today's meeting. My name is Mahesh Bagia, and I currently serve as a special assistant to Edison Mayor Thomas Lanke. It's the position that I've held since July of 2017. It's my pleasure to be here this evening before the committee. I believe you are here to tackling an important issue, the 2017 election flyer. As a resident, taxpayer, and a father, it's been important to me that Edison remains a thriving community, one that's welcoming to all. By the way of background, I moved to Edison in 2001. For past 18 years, I have had pleasure of calling Edison my home. I've raised my family here, including my 2 daughters, both of whom attend Edison's public schools, and have family-owned business in Edison. It's extremely disheartening for me to see my name, my home, my family being called repeatedly and purposefully mentioned by the committee in what appears to be a political purpose. Moving forward, it's my sincere hope that this committee is more responsible when it comes to unnecessarily dragging an individual's family into this discussion. I believe that by working together as one community, united in the purpose, we can all move Edison forward. Ultimately, the responsibility of doing that rests with all of us, 100,000 plus residents. Whether we are elected or not, it falls on each of us to contribute back to our township. This is why I've committed so much time to the community causes and why I'm honored to serve in Lanke administration. Unfortunately, since 2013, I've witnessed degradation of political atmosphere in Edison. There have been several prominent examples of this over the years. I recall when the political science of mayoral candidate, Dr. Sudhanshu Prasad, the first Indian American candidate for that office, were vandalized in 2013. In 2017, a committee woman, Deborah Andrews, who at that time was the only African-American woman on the Edison Democratic Organization, alleged that her name was left off the ballot due to her race. Certainly, we all remember Make Edison Great Again flyer in late 2017. More recently, the flyers from Edison Democrats 2019 were subject of federal complaint by the South Asian Bar Association and were roundly criticized by ACLU of New Jersey as well as Edison Chamber of NAACP. And police detective was portrayed as a clown. Another officer was attacked for his service in military. These are all unacceptable. And while there has not been any official investigation by the body as it relates to all these incidents, I think we can all agree that this nonetheless are deplorable. I understand that this committee is looking into 2017 Make Edison Great flyer. And I can say with clear conscience that I had no role with production or printing of this flyer. I can also say that I did not produce or print any mailers for People for Progress, and that I do not know Andrew Molares or Cesar Schwartz. In 2017, when I served as a volunteer for campaign of Mayor Lanky, Councilman Deal, Councilman Joshi, Councilman Gomez, along with Board of Education team members endorsed by Mayor Lanky, I did not believe that I would ever imagine that 2 years later, we will still be talking about that election. But here we are, and this is what we are doing. Principally due to corrosive tone of that election, a tone continued by Edison Democrats 2019. Edison deserves a high level of discourse. We, all of us, should raise a level of debate, discuss ideas, propose solutions, and while we may not agree, strive towards a strong public policy. That has always been my goal since, including in 2017, when my role was largely limited to that of a campaign supporter. I remember knocking on the door after door and having conversations, meaningful conversations with Edison residents. I often took back the issues that these residents identified to the campaign. These issues range from ever increasing property taxes, to struggles of small business, to overcrowding of our schools, to neighborhood security problems, flooding of the backyards, potholes in the street. In short, I mainly served as a conduit between the residents and the campaign. I also sometimes assisted with engaging other residents who are passionate about the issues that I am. We should always debate policies, research good issues that worked in other townships, meet with the policymakers, try and come up with the ideas that serve as a platform for the campaign. There were assortment of individuals from the campaigns that would hear me out. Sometimes the candidate themselves listened to the issues raised by the residents, which I in turn advocated for. Some of the members at the dais today were involved in those discussions as well. The mayor met with me periodically, as did Board of Education members, including Mr. D. Stefano, Mr. Shi, Ms. Moroni, and Ms. Patel. Other times, I would raise these issues to campaign's core team, such as Ms. Butis or Mr. Rusomano, who in turn, I understand, discussed these issues with the field staff and communications. Other times, these issues were discussed during the events, including the backyard barbecues or neighborhood meet and greets, which I helped organize. While I do not have specific recollection of every interaction, every meeting, or every discussion, I generally recall that my interactions with the candidates as being professional, good-natured, and about the positive message that they wanted to relate to the electorate. My role within the campaign was limited, and I'm hazard to speculate if any of the individuals who I supported there in any way connected to the 2017 flyer. Finally, given that we are entering from the 4th of July celebrations this weekend, I'm reminded that if history teaches us anything, it's our country's ability to be understanding and tolerant to each other. It is an important lesson, particularly fitting to a town as diverse as ours. My family and I have been blessed to call Edison as our home, and I can only urge all the residents to look into their hearts, where I believe they will find their own compassion and understanding. With that, I request all of us to work together in peace and unity and with love for our neighbors and move our town forward in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagia. I have a couple questions about your statement. You started out maybe in paragraph 2 or 3 stating that you thought this investigation or this committee of the whole had a political purpose. I want to tell you that that was not the origin or genesis of this. I agree with you in that there have been several infractions over the years. You know, I've been here 18 years. I've served with a lot of different council people. I've witnessed a lot of lapse in decorum in these council chambers with different things that were said. Some of them were insulting, and they could fall into racist or ethnic slurs. But I want to say that, and we did tolerate some of that. Yes, we did. As a community, we tolerated, and as a council and as an administration, some of that was tolerated to a degree. But I think what happened was this particular flyer that made national or international news put us at the breaking point where we said, enough is enough. This does not represent the town. This is not who we are, and we are going to find out, if we can, who is responsible. That's what happened. There was no political purpose when this happened, when it came out. There was an uproar from this community that something needed to be done because enough was enough. So with that, I think, and I had a concern too, and because now we're going back a couple years. My concern was that newspapers yellow, that things that are important today aren't as important 6 months or a year from now. And it seems to me that perhaps that is the sentiment with some folks today in that, why are we really doing this anymore? Why are we doing this? Mr. Bagia, with all due respect, you heard me almost at every single council meeting for the last 2 years saying that I am not going to let this go. I am not going to let newspapers yellow. I am going to remember this. I am going to follow this until, in the hope that we can find out who is responsible. Because if we find out who is responsible, our chances of this happening again are less, that people will know, no, you can't do that here. They're going to find you. They'll follow you. They'll get you. So you can't do this here. Plus, it gives us a little bit of relief in that it proves that we are not a racist town, that this is not part of who we are. We are a diverse community, a wonderfully diverse community. So my question to you, Mr. Bagia, my first question tonight is, do you think we should continue with the Committee of the Whole?
Yes, you should.
Thank you. All right. Mahesh, I know you stated before that you didn't have anything with the distribution, the creation, the putting together. You weren't the architect behind it. Basically, that's what you're saying?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. But you, with your testimony there, you cited a lot, with your statement, you cited a lot of your involvement. So I guess my first question is, when did you first hear about the flyer?
I mean, this is 2 years ago. I guess, think Officer Dave Tingle sent it to me, I guess.
I'm sorry, sir.
Officer Dave Tingle, he had, I think he texted me, or if I remember, or Rich Brusher.
Rich Brescher
Yeah.
texted you?
Texted you or called. I mean, this is 2 years ago, but this is how I recall it.
Do you remember what he said in the text or the conversation?
No. Or he called me. I don't remember, but somehow, you know.
So he calls you or he texts you, and what does he say? There's a flyer? What does he say?
I don't recall. I mean, this is 2 years ago.
You recall that it was Rich Brescher.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, Rich Brusher or Dave Tingles, one of them.
Okay,
Yep.
one of the two.
Yeah.
And they contacted you and they said there's a flyer. Did they describe the flyer at all?
Like I said, I don't recall. It's 2 years ago.
I know. The problem I'm having is that you remember quite clearly the two people, or one of two people, or
Yeah.
both people, contacted you,
Yeah.
but you can't tell me what they said when they contacted you.
Nope.
So, do you recall on October 7th, or around October 7th, there was an election strategy meeting at your home?
I don't recall. There were many meetings.
At your home?
No, overall, the whole election, there were many meetings.
Were any of the meetings at your home, where you live?
I don't recall. There will be, yes. If other people are saying yes, there would be meeting, yeah.
Well, other people aren't testifying tonight. Were there meetings at your home? I'm asking you. I'm not asking other people.
Doesn't recall.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, sir?
He's answered the question.
And what was the answer?
I don't recall.
You don't recall if there were meetings at your home, strategy meetings?
No.
Okay. Both Shannon Pang and Paul DiStefano, and I hope I pronounced his name correctly, previously testified that there were election meetings at your house.
Yeah, yeah,
There's no question being asked.
yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, sir?
You didn't ask a question, so he doesn't have to speak. When you ask a question, he'll
Sure.
answer.
Well, then I'll pose it as a question, okay? What do you have to say about the fact that Shannon Pang and Paul DiStefano previously testified to an election meeting at your house on that date?
Their testimony speaks for itself. If you have a copy of it and you want to ask him about what was said, we'll take a look at it.
Okay, I appreciate that answer, Counselor, but you just told me that he couldn't answer because I didn't put it in the form of a question.
Yeah, you
I
did.
just put it in the form of a question,
And if
and
you're
I would...
responding to specific testimony, my client would have a right to review that before commenting on it. That's my position. Same with documents.
So are you instructing your client not to answer the question?
I'm requesting a copy of the testimony, because other than that, we don't know exactly what was said. It could be paraphrased.
I mean, it probably is paraphrased, but I don't think there's anything wrong with Councilman Deal asking about testimony of other people and whether it refreshes the recollection of your client.
No, I don't recall.
There you go.
So for the record, you don't recall any meeting at your house involving an election meeting about the Board of Ed election?
It's a mischaracterization of what he previously stated. He stated he remembers there being some meetings all over the place, including his home. He did say that.
Yeah.
That's already on the record.
If you both could just speak into the mic.
We would appreciate that, thank you.
Sure.
Sure. Mr. Bagia, just so the record's clear, are you testifying you do not specifically recall an October 2017 meeting taking place at your home for the purposes of political strategy?
That is correct.
Thank you.
But you do not deny, I want to make sure I phrase this in the form of a question. Do you deny that meetings did take place at your home for the purpose of political strategy?
What is the question? I don't understand.
Did you have meetings at the house?
Yeah, we had meetings all over. Yeah,
Okay.
all over the town. Yeah.
Where were some of the other places that you had meetings?
I'm sorry?
Where were some of the other places that you had meetings?
Maybe we had it in Dunkin' Donuts, or here, we were going meet and greet. We were talking at the meet and greets. So everywhere we go, we just discuss the issues.
Okay.
If we were to tell you, Mr. Bagia, that previous witnesses testified that there was a political strategy meeting at your home in October 2017, would you have any reason to dispute that testimony?
No, I won't.
Mr. Bagia, at these meetings that were held all over the place, who could you identify as persons at those meetings?
Board of Education members, Mayor Lanky, that's pretty much it. Sometimes Anthony Rusomano.
Okay. So we have Anthony Rusomano, Mayor Lanky, and Board of Education members. Can you state specifically what Board of Education members might have been at those meetings?
This has been, I guess all the members, I don't recall, but I guess all the members who are on the...
Well, there's 9 members, so all 9 of them?
No, the candidates.
And can you tell me the discussions that revolved around mailings in particular at these meetings that were held in these different places that you were part of?
I was not involved with any mailings.
Were there discussions at the meetings that you were at that were held in different places with several candidates and different people? Can you recall about discussions regarding mailings?
No.
Okay. So there's no recollection that you have of any discussion about any of the mailings?
Yes, I don't recall any of the mailings being discussed.
What did they discuss at the meetings?
This is about what the issues the residents are talking about. You know, somebody's talking about security, somebody's talking about overcrowding, somebody's talking about property, taxes, all those issues, whatever they're talking about, you know, we residents are talking about. I thought it's important for all the candidates to come up with a solution, just not talk about the problems.
These meetings, it seems if you're holding a meeting in a Dunkin' Donuts, it can be a rather informal meeting. Was there a standard group of individuals, a core group of individuals who would meet not only at Dunkin' Donuts, but at your house or wherever else they met? Could you identify a core group?
I mean, this was all Board of Education candidates, you know. So we were, and every meeting is not like, you know, I mean, I don't have recollection, but it's just, it was very, very informal, you know. You're trying to do the right things. You know, if some resident is raising an issue, it's important for that to be addressed. So we were meeting here and there, you know, or we were campaigning. So you stop by somebody or you're walking in a district and you meet somewhere, you know.
Okay, sir. I'll hold off for now. I want to take some notes.
Sure, I'll continue. Mr. Baggia, Shannon Pang, if we can pull up Exhibit D.
I'll ask the court reporter to pass to the witness what's been pre-marked as Exhibit D, please.
Thanks. Board of Education members Shannon Pang seem to recall that at the meeting, one of the meetings at your house, yourself, herself, and Mr. DeStefano were discussing a pie chart and a cartoon within Exhibit D. Do you recall this exhibit at all?
Take your time to review what's been marked as Exhibit D, Mr. Baggia. Specifically, Mr. Baggia, while you're reviewing, I'll note and I'll ask you to confirm that what's been placed on the screen behind me and on the monitors in the room here are excerpts lifted from that Exhibit D that's been placed in front of you. I believe it's a multiple-page document that does not lend itself well to multimedia presentation.
Yeah, I remember some of the informational chart, but none of other things I don't know.
Do you recognize, sorry.
So the school budget, you know, some of the charts, because it's informational, so those are the things that we talked about.
So you do recall talking about specific items contained within that document that's been placed in front of you?
That's correct. It's all the school budget, how much is the budget, people were asking, what's the budget, so.
But not just the concepts. You recognize the actual pictures contained within that document?
No, I do not recall.
So you don't believe you've ever seen this document prior to it being placed in front of you tonight?
Counselor, I don't recall.
So you have no recollection of seeing this document prior to
That's
tonight?
correct.
Yeah, if I could. Mr. Baggia, when the meetings, for the meetings that were at your house, since they were in different places, was any type of, were any type of visual aids used? A screen, anything like that? Anything like that we have now, would that be projected in your home where something like this would show up?
No, sir.
Okay. Computers, though, people were working on computers?
Like I said, I don't recall. It's 2 years ago, and I don't recall where it was. Paper, computer, I have no idea.
Okay. And sir, you said that because, you know, we're certainly interested to find out who was at these meetings. You're saying, you mentioned Mayor Lanke, Anthony Russomanno, and the council candidates but not all the council candidates, correct? I'm sorry, board member candidates, thank you very much. Board of Education candidates?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there anybody here tonight that was also in those meetings?
No, this was the,
When you say here, Councilman, you're referring to the audience?
I'm talking about anybody in the dais, anybody in the room. Was anybody else besides Anthony Russomanno, Mayor Lanke, and council candidates, which you stated, was anybody else here tonight in that meeting also?
this was Board of Education members.
Just Board of Education members. So nobody that is here tonight, was at any of those meetings that you were with?
No, not in this one, but all the meet and greet, yeah, we were talking about the issues, right?
Well, who?
Huh?
Who here tonight?
Yeah, AJ Patil was in one of the meet and greets.
Thank you.
Sam Joshi was there in one of the meet and
Okay.
greets.
But they were never at your house?
I don't recall. It's been 2 years. sir.
Sam Joshi, AJ Patil were never at your house?
Again, I mean, there's no point of, I mean, I understand you want to repeat again and again, but I always already said, I don't recall.
Well, we have testimony from other people that say that people were in this room, were at your house, and you're saying you don't recall them being at your house.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you know who Andres Morales is?
No, I already mentioned in my statement.
Okay. And could you pull up Exhibit E?
Yes, thank you. And I'll note that the reporter has placed what's been pre-marked as Exhibit E in front of the witness. Mr. Bagia, if you could take a moment to please review.
So this was sent by People for Progress, and it's obviously very similar to the one, the previous email. Do you know anything about People for Progress or Andres Morales that you'd be able to share with us?
I already said, it's in my statement, I was not involved in any mailing, production of any mailers.
Okay.
And I do not know Andrew Molares or Caesar Schwartz. I already mentioned in the statement.
So some of the questions may seem redundant, but we've done this for everyone because we want to have it on record that we asked the question.
Okay, thank you.
When you say you don't know them, what does that mean exactly?
I mean, I've never met them. I don't know who they are, where they live. I don't know anything.
When was the first time you've heard the name Andres or Andrew Morales?
During the election time.
The election of 2017.
Yes, recently also I heard, and also during that time, somebody was talking about it.
And when you, do you recall how you learned of that name during the election of 2017?
Nope.
Do you remember in any general context of how you learned of that name?
I don't recall, like I said, but if I don't know, I don't know, right? I mean, why we are playing games here? I just said I don't know the person. I don't recall.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a little more clarity out of your answer. You said that you heard his name in or around the time of the 2017 election. I wasn't sure if you could recall that you maybe saw it somewhere or someone said it to you, or if there was some context, if you, reflecting on it a bit further, could somehow recall a little more granularity on that point.
No, I don't recall.
Did you ever wonder who who Andres or Andrew Morales was?
Nope.
Having heard his name, you didn't wonder how he was associated with the election of 2017?
No, that was not my thing. I was walking the doors, canvassing, that's it.
Has anyone ever spoken to you about Andrew or Andres Morales?
Nope.
And with regard to Cesar Suarez, how did you first learn of his identity? Excuse me, let me rephrase. When did you first hear the name Cesar Suarez?
I think I heard the name in the last meeting when,
Has anyone talked to you about Cesar Suarez?
no.
Thank you. Having an opportunity to review what's been placed in front of you is Exhibit E. Have you ever seen that document prior to this evening?
No, I don't recall.
So you don't recall having seen this document prior to tonight?
That's correct.
Having reviewed it, does this document, do you recognize any of the images within this document? And there, if you could just take a second to review, there are at least three images. Some of them are presented here on the screen in front of us. It's marked as Exhibit E. Again, I believe it's a 3-page document, which does not lend itself well to being presented here on the screen. Do you recognize any of those specific images, if not the entire document itself?
No, I don't recall. But I mean, the budget thing, it looks familiar, but I don't recall.
The email address on there, ppl4progress@gmail.com, does that email address, is that familiar?
No, I don't recall.
Do you know if you've ever received an email from that email address?
No, I don't recall.
Are you familiar with, on the last page, in the bottom of that document, it does say that that was sent by People for Progress, is that correct? If you could take a second to review.
If I can, Council, if I can interject, it does have a paid for by on it, but on the last page, I don't necessarily see where it was sent by. I simply don't see
I
that.
understand. It says it was paid for by People for Progress, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says that, yes.
Is that, is People for Progress, is that something you're familiar with?
I mean, like, in terms of what?
Have you heard the name People for Progress prior to tonight?
Yes. And I said already, I had nothing to do with printing or whatever mailers was sent by People for Progress.
Are you aware of any individuals that direct or control People for Progress?
No, I don't recall.
When did you first learn of People for Progress?
I don't recall. It's been there. I don't know.
Would it be fair to say that you've known of People for Progress for approximately 2 years?
Like I said, I don't recall.
Would it be fair to say that you knew the name People for Progress in October 2017 at the time of in or about the time of the 2017 elections?
No. I mean, I don't know. I don't recall. Yeah, I don't recall what time I heard, because it's just like so many things, so many people talking, right? Because we go, and I don't know what point of time, but I don't have a recollection, yeah.
But can you give us this order of magnitude? Have you known about People for Progress for a week, a month, a year, 10 years?
I've known it at least for a year.
And how would you say you first became aware of People for Progress?
I'm sorry, I don't have specific recollection.
Do you know any individuals who are associated with People for Progress?
Can you define associated? Because he's already stated that he doesn't know anybody People for Progress. Now you asked about associated with People for Progress, so could you, seems a little confused, so could you maybe elaborate on that question a little bit?
Do you know
please?
anybody who's done any work on behalf of People for Progress?
No, I've seen Mr. Usomano posted on Facebook recently that he knows something about it, but other than that, I don't know.
Do you know anybody who has, are you yourself, have you done any work on behalf of People for Progress?
No, sir.
Do you know anybody who has represented themselves as associated with People for Progress?
No, sir.
Have you ever had a conversation with somebody about People for Progress?
I mean, I don't quite understand. If you want to rephrase your question.
I think it's a clear question. Have you ever discussed with somebody People for Progress, other than your attorney?
People have been talking about it all over the town.
Have you yourself had a conversation with another person in which you discussed People for Progress, other than your attorney?
Discussed how?
In any context, used the words.
Yes.
And what was the most recent conversation, other than that of your attorney, in which you talked about people for progress in any context?
I don't have recollection. It's a ongoing thing. I mean,
Can you recall any conversation in the past year in which you discussed people for progress with any person other than your attorney?
like I said, I don't recall. It's an ongoing thing. People talk. I'm a township employee. People talk. I go here. I'm involved with so many things. People talk about it, and I don't have specific recollection of when, what, and how it was spoke about.
I didn't ask if you had specific recollection. I asked if you had had any conversation in the past year with any person about people for progress.
I don't recall.
You can't recall that you've used the words people for progress in the past year in a conversation.
Yes, I don't recall.
You mentioned that you had no role in producing or printing the flyer. Did you have any role with regard to the flyer we've been discussing, what's been marked as Exhibit A? I can put it in front of you, although it's up on the screen. I know you're aware of what we're talking about. Did you have any role in the dissemination of this flyer, printing, stamping, sending, designing, discussing, strategizing, otherwise?
No, sir.
Did you know about this flyer before it was put into the U.S. mails?
No, sir.
So the first thing that you learned about this flyer in any context was after it had been effectively deposited with the U.S. Postal Service.
That I can answer, I don't know. I mean, I don't have recollection when I saw it and how I saw it.
So you're saying it's possible that you saw it before it went to the United States Postal Service?
I have no idea about this flyer, so I can't answer that question.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your answer. You have no idea. You don't know what about the flyer specifically.
I don't know anything about the flyer, so.
But I asked, you were made aware of this flyer. I think you testified previously. At some point, you became aware of the flyer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I'm asking, you were made aware of the flyer after it had been submitted basically for mailing with the United States Postal Service. Is that correct?
How would he know, how would he know that? How would he know whether or not it was submitted for mailing or not? If he saw one randomly somewhere, whether it had been mailed or not mailed? I mean,
have you ever seen a copy of this flyer? Have you ever seen a physical, actual copy of this flyer in the real world?
No, I don't recall. It's been 2 years. Somebody might have showed it to me.
Is it possible you've seen a physical copy of this flyer?
It's been 2 years. I don't recall. People might have shown it to me.
So you're testifying, yes, it is possible.
that is his
yeah,
testimony, speaks for
yes.
itself.
And do you recall the date on which you were made aware of the flyer?
No, I don't recall.
But is it fair to say that your testimony, in pertinent part, is that you were made aware of this flyer's existence by officers of the Edison Police Department?
That was not his testimony.
I thought if you could just, perhaps I'm confused on this point. I thought you were made aware of the flyer by one of either two officers either calling or texting you about its existence. Am I misunderstanding?
But not in the official capacity as my friend.
Okay, maybe not in an official capacity, but people who have jobs as police officers, they were the ones who made you aware for the very first time about the existence of this flyer.
Like I said, I don't recall who, between both of them, I guess, or both of them might have informed. Yeah.
So you can't say whether it was one of those two people who first informed you?
No, I think they were the ones.
So one of those two people were the very first instance you heard about this flyer, is that
Yes,
correct?
very possible, yes.
When you say very possible, are you saying, can you testify unequivocally whether it was those two people or not?
No.
So it's possible.
This is my best, like I said, I'm trying to answer and trying to help this committee find who might have done it, right? So I'm trying to help you guys.
I understand, but is it true that you're essentially testifying that you don't know when you first learned about the flyer?
That's correct.
And Do you recall when the flyer, have you ever seen the flyer discussed in the news?
Yes,
Have you ever seen the flyer discussed on social media?
yes.
Do you recall how long of a gap it was prior to being informed about the flyer and seeing it in the news or social media?
No, I don't recall.
Can you estimate?
No, I can't.
Can you give me an estimation on the order of days, weeks, months?
No, I can't. I have no recollection.
What's the first thing you did when you learned about the flyer?
I was quite upset, and I thought whoever did it did a very disgraceful job for this township. Because like I said, over the years, the signs have been vandalized, the things have been done. This is just taking it to another level, It's bad for all the communities because it creates more divisive environment within Edison when we are trying to unite everybody and, work towards a common goal.
It seems like you were pretty upset about it. Do you recall what you did, if anything?
No, this is 2 years ago, so like I said,
Did you talk to anybody about it?
I have no recollection at this point of time, but all I can say is I found it very disgraceful.
So you're saying it's possible you never talked to anybody about the flyer?
I might have, but it's been 2 years. I might have discussed, like this is such a bad thing. Whoever did it is just trying to divide the community.
So it's possible that you never spoke to a single person about this flyer other than your attorney?
No, I think you're mischaracterizing my words. I said, I might have said,
Might is the same as possible. I'm asking you, is it possible you've never spoken to someone about this flyer before your attorney or tonight?
no, I did discuss in terms of how disgraceful this thing is. Yes.
And do you recall when you had those discussions?
It's been asked and answered. We'll let him answer it one more time.
Well, he said he couldn't recall any discussions. Now he's recalling discussions, so I don't think it's been...
Well, I disagree, and I object to that, because at first he said he did see it at some point in time.
No, I'm talking about the discussions. He didn't recall having discussions, and now he is recalling them. so
No,
I'd like
he
to know.
originally testified that people were talking about it, and he had general discussions with it. Has been unable to specifically meet your time frame or whatever spin you're putting on his response.
I'm just asking if you can remember speaking to any single individual about it.
No, I don't recall, but I had, this has been ongoing. This is a talk of the town. So if you're asking me, yes, some point of time, yes, I had discussions about this, yes.
Do you personally know of anyone who would have information about this flyer?
No, sir.
Do you personally know of anyone of any physical evidence that would pertain to this flyer?
No, sir.
Do you know where these flyers were printed?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Bagia, I know you gave a statement at the beginning of your testimony, and it was quite lengthy, so if I ask you something that you feel that you've already said in your statement, just bear with me and just answer the question, okay? You went over a little bit about your role in the 2017 Board of Education election. Can you just take me through what your role was in that election?
So I was a campaign supporter of Mayor Lanky, Edison Council candidates, and Board of Education.
And in terms of Board of Education, that was the BOE Unity team?
That's correct. It was Mayor Lanky team.
And you also indicated that you would knock on doors for this group?
Yes, for all the Democratic Party ticket, yes, and a Board of Education.
Okay. And would you solicit campaign contributions to the BOE Unity team?
No, sir.
Did you personally contribute to the BOE Unity team campaign?
No, sir. Not to Mayor Lanky team as well.
And would it be fair to say that you were a part of the majority of the meetings and when discussing strategy and planning?
Like I said, we were talking about the issues. We would knock on the door, we would hear some issues, we would talk to mayor, I would talk to mayor, I would talk to Board of Education, see if there is something which both of the teams can resolve together. For example, overcrowding. It needs to be resolved by council, and it needs to be resolved by school members together.
I appreciate that, your testimony, but my question was, would it be fair to say that you were a part of the majority of the planning and strategic meetings for the BOE Unity team?
No, sir, I don't recall.
Is it no, or is it you don't recall?
I don't recall being in part of the strategy meetings.
Now, we discussed before that there may have been a meeting held at your house, and I believe you testified that some meetings were in fact held at your home, correct?
That's correct.
What would those meetings be about, if not strategy and planning?
We were talking about the door-to-door issues when people knock. What were the issues? Everybody wanted to know what's the school budget. Like we have, we don't know what is the overcrowding. What can be done about overcrowding, for example?
And when you say we, who else do you remember as being part of those discussions?
Answer one more time, go ahead.
The Board of Education members, sometimes mayor, sometimes, AJ Patil, sometimes Mr. Usomano. It's different people. We're meeting with different people.
When you say Board of Education members, was Mr. Shi a part of these meetings?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Was Ms. Falguni Patel a part of those meetings?
Sometimes.
Okay. Was Beth Maroney a part of those meetings?
No.
Was Paul DiStefano a part of those meetings?
Yes. But we met Beth Maroney in different places. I mean, I don't recall, but we have had discussions with Beth Maroney as well on the bus stops. So, so many things, so many different things, yes.
Were there Board of Education members not part of the Unity team that were part of those meetings?
Yes. I think Shannon Pang was not running.
Now, prior to coming here tonight, did you either watch the prior meetings or read the transcripts?
The one,
Prior meetings or transcripts of what, Councilman?
Of the prior Committee of the Whole meetings?
no, I was, again, I apologize. I was not able to make the May 14 meeting. I was away. So I was called for the May 14, but I was informed like 3 days earlier. So I couldn't make it to May 14. So I just watched it briefly, but the last meeting on and off, I haven't watched it like completely.
Okay. So you did watch a portion of the meeting?
Yes, the first meeting, yes, because I couldn't attend.
All right. What about the second meeting where Ms. Pang testified?
On and off, but not completely.
Okay. Do you recall testimony from Ms. Pang that she was in fact at your house on October 7th when the exhibit that was shown before, or a version of that exhibit was created?
I answer the question?
I mean, she says, yes, she was. I mean, I don't recall, but she's saying, yes, she would be right.
Maybe not.
Besides, strike that. If this council thinks it's prudent to have some of the flyers tested for fingerprints, would you be willing to voluntarily give a fingerprint?
He doesn't have to answer that question right now. He'll take it under advisement. Council will get back to you.
Okay. And just for my own information, Mr. Fusco,
Yes.
should we ask Mr. Colello, or have you taken over the representation of Mr. Bagia?
I represent Mr. Boggy.
Okay, so Mr. Colello does no longer
I don't know who
represent?
Mr. Clello is.
Well, prior to you coming here
Yes.
tonight, Mr. Colello has written letters of representation on behalf of Mr. Bagia.
Be honest with you, I'm unaware of that. If you need a specific letter of representation from me, I'll certainly have one forwarded to the council. But I will be representing Mr. Bagia from this point forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Last question, Mr. Bagia, and this may be the same answer. Would you be willing to submit to a lie detector or polygraph test?
We'll take that under advisement and get back to you on that if a specific request is ever made.
You can go.
After this flyer was sent out, let me rephrase first, or backtrack. Who are you closer to, Ms. Patel or Mr. Shi? Throughout the campaign, who did you more frequently speak to?
Both.
Okay. And after this flyer went out, did you speak to either of them about the flyer?
Like I said, I don't recall any specific things. This is 2 years ago.
So keep in mind a lot of the questions that we're asking, the things that you may feel are not important may be very important when we piece all the puzzles together. So sometimes you may not know what you don't know, which is what Mike said,
Yeah.
Mr. Councilman Lombardi said, but it may be very relevant information. So afterwards, after this went out, did you have any conversation with Mr. Shi or Ms. Patel, considering that you were working closely with the whole Unity team and the campaign in general?
I don't recall, but if there's something, I'll go back, and if there's something, I'll be happy to provide.
Okay. Do you recall any reaction from either of them?
Everybody was very upset. That's what I know. Everybody said this is unbelievable.
Specifically for Ms. Patel, for example, do you remember any reaction, any conversation that you may have had?
I don't recall, but as I said, if I do something, and this is the first time I'm hearing, but if something I recall, I will be happy to share it with the committee.
And Mr. Shi, is there any reaction or any conversation that you've had related to this flyer since then?
Again, it's, as I said, it's long time, and I don't recall, but if there's something, yes, I'll be happy to share.
Okay.
Mr. Bagia, I was looking through my notes. I have just a couple other questions. I know we discussed Cesar Suarez, and your testimony was that you do not know who Mr. Suarez is. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you know that Mr. Suarez was a tenant of Councilman Patil?
No, sir.
So the first time you learned of that was at the last committee of the whole meeting?
Yeah, I learned it like when everybody learned.
That's all I have.
Council President. Mr. Bagia, in the first Committee of the Whole meeting, Paul DiStefano testified that you were in charge with the BOE Unity team's mailing lists and addresses. Is that true?
No, sir. That's incorrect.
Did you provide any mailing list or address list to anybody during that campaign?
No, sir.
Okay. Have you been, in your capacity of being active in elections, have you put together mailing lists?
So recently, I mean, I don't recall in that election, but just walking list, yes.
Just walking lists?
That's correct.
Okay. What we can determine from the samples that we have of the flyer, that it was somewhat of a specific targeting of these mailings. Do you have any idea who may have put together an address list targeting these specific residents?
No, sir, I don't have any recollection of that.
But you have been, in the past, involved in different elections, putting together addresses and mailing lists, correct?
When you say in the past, are you referring to from today? Like in 2018? Seriously, you're talking about 2017 election. When you say in the past, he might have done it in 18. That is the past.
Well, why don't we start with 2016 and move forward? Let's say in the last 3 years, have you put together any mailing lists for any campaign with addresses?
No, sir, I don't recall.
None.
That's 3 years. The question was in 3 years.
No.
Well, we could expand that question to longer. You do put together mailing lists and addresses, correct?
No,
For
sir.
elections?
No, sir.
You never have?
No, sir.
Ever?
Yeah, not specifically like this, elections.
Then what would you put an address or mailing list together for?
No, I mean the walking list, yes. We have everybody has a list, right? The walking list.
Mr. Bagia, you started your statement tonight with, I felt it was critical in that it was saying that this committee was for a political purpose. And in the last hour, you've said that upon learning about the flyer, you found it disgraceful. You said that people were very upset, these are your own words, that it was unbelievable, that it was ongoing, it was the ongoing talk of the town. You've said these things.
Yes, that's correct.
So my question is, and you've also stated that you believe the committee of the whole should move forward. So if it's disgraceful and people are upset and it's unbelievable and it's the ongoing talk of the town, then where does, and you believe it should move forward, then where does the political part fit into you?
I believe he stated it was the talk of the town. I'm not so sure that he refers to it being currently today.
We've got a
Might have
lot
been
of
a little
people
bit
here
of
tonight.
Well, be that as it may, when I'm not referring to who's here tonight, I'm referring to his specific testimony.
No,
Okay.
and let me,
For a town of 100,000, you know, everybody, or the talk of the town, there are a significant amount of people here tonight, but, you know,
Those are his words, Counselor. He said that it was the talk of the town. Everybody was talking about it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I'm sorry, sir.
Was,
Okay. So you're
not
saying?
is. I'm saying,
Okay.
he didn't, his testimony, as you stated it, was the talk of the town.
Okay. And but by stating that, are you saying that it's no longer relevant, that it's no longer an issue, it's something that we shouldn't pursue?
Counselor, I may want to read the paragraph again for you. I think there might be miscommunication,
Sure.
what I was trying to say.
Sure, thank you.
It's extremely disheartening to see my name, my home, my family being repeatedly and purposefully discussed by the committee in what appears to be a political purpose. I'm not saying this cause, whatever the committee is doing, yes, I agree what you guys are doing is good, it's happening, right? But again, when you say my name, my home name, you know, did any witness say that they made this flyer in my home?
Well, first of all,
Did they say anybody? I'm sorry.
right.
I
Thank
know
you.
I don't have right to ask question, but
right. Thank you, Mr. Bagia.
You know-
Well, you actually, you can ask questions, but my point is this, and that is, and I made it earlier tonight, no one on this panel has accused anybody of anything. We haven't accused anybody of anything. We said from the beginning that we are putting this together to get information. That's what we did. It wasn't anyone here necessarily who brought up your name on several occasions. That was from the testimony of other witnesses who said there were meetings in your house, that you were involved, that there was a core group, and you were one of 3 or 4 people that was that core group. It wasn't us, so when you say it's disheartening that there's a political purpose, we didn't bring your name into this. Your name has been brought into this by the testimony of people you associate with. That's where we are right now. My question to you, sir, is if you believe it is a disgraceful thing, and I do believe you believe that, and and people are upset by it, and whether it was or today, or it's the talk of the town, who would you, if you were on this committee right now, who would you call to testify?
everybody, whoever the candidates, including yourself, Mr. Councilman Joshi, Mr. Gomez, because all of, you know, Mayor Lanky, everybody, whoever was the candidate.
Make sure you're speaking to the mic.
Sorry, all the candidates.
Okay, so you understand that, and I've already stated it. I stated it at the last meeting. I have no problem testifying at all. I'd be happy to do it.
Yeah, yes, but you asked me a question. I'm just saying
no,
yes.
my point is this. You brought my name into it. Say, well, I should
No, no,
testify.
no,
Your
I'm
name
not-
was brought into
no,
it
I'm
in the first or second meeting, and that's why you're here tonight. There's
No,
no
I-
political purpose
No,
other than we want to find out who
yeah.
did this flyer.
No, you asked me, I'm just saying, you know, because the candidates are the one who usually benefit by most of this, you know? The
Well, keep in
supporters,
mind,
yeah.
I think there should be a distinction, too. I know because there's a lot of conflating here, putting the council campaign and the BOE campaign together. Quite frankly, being part of that campaign, the council campaign, we never met with the BOE. Never. Okay? I'll raise my hand and swear to it. Never met with any Board of Education member to discuss anything about a Board of Education strategy on the Board of Education campaign. And my colleagues can state it for themselves how they went. So this idea that there's, well, it was one and the same, it was not one and the same. Mayor Lanke, as I understand it, we can bring him to testify, he already agreed to do that, that he already said that it was Jerry Shee who constantly asked him to get involved, and he did resist for a long period of time. And it wasn't until the end of the campaign did I even hear Tom Lanke mention BOE Unity Team or Jerry Shee and BOE Unity Team. It was very end. So let's not put the two together because that's not the fact, okay? I'd be happy to testify, okay, about what I know about the racist flyer. What I know about the racist flyer is that that somebody brought it to my attention that it was on national news. And when I saw it, it was disgraceful. And 2 days later at a council meeting, I brought it up, and I've been bringing it up ever since. There's no political thing here, and those two campaigns should not be put together to conflate and confuse anybody. Thank you.
I don't have further questions for Mr. Vagia.
Any other further questions from other council members? Yes, sir.
Just one quick set of questions here. I just want to make sure I have this correct. Councilman Deal had asked earlier about mailing lists and addresses and whether you provided them to the Unity team in 2017. And I just want to make sure I have your testimony correct. Is it that you do not recall whether you did so, or you are sure that you did not do so in 2017?
I do not recall. It's been a long time.
So it is possible that you did do so.
I don't recall.
So that makes it possible if you don't recall.
You should, again, with the spinning of the questions, his testimony is what it is. You guys can attach whatever spin you want to it.
I'm not spinning it. I'm just trying to clarify. Is it that he does not recall, or he recalls that he did not do so?
His testimony speaks for itself. This question's been asked and answered 10 times tonight.
Well, all right, so just answer it one last time. Is it that you do not recall, or that you are positive you do
Don't
not?
answer the question again. It's been asked and answered 10
No,
times.
we want to know who's intimidating these Chinese in this community.
Sir,
You
please.
guys are doing a good job.
Sir, please. Sir,
Okay.
please maintain order.
Council President,
Yes, sir.
just to be clear,
An Indian doesn't want to know who's.
excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Okay. It was stated by the attorney tonight that there's a possibility that you would provide fingerprints and possibly.
I said we would discuss it and get back to you.
Then-
There's no, maybe, maybe not. That's my statement stands for itself.
Thank you. But that was in regards to the fingerprints and the polygraph, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So when can we anticipate an answer?
When a formal request is made, we will discuss it, take it under advisement, and respond accordingly.
Okay. And what type of timeline would you think that might be? If we put out a formal request tomorrow, how long do you think we're going to wait for an answer, whether you would take a polygraph or provide fingerprints?
Don't know.
You don't know?
No, I don't know how long it'll take. A day, a week, 2 weeks, 10 days,
That's
3
your
days.
answer? That's
It'll
your
be what
answer.
it'll
Thank
be.
you.
Anybody else?
No, just a couple points I want to mention. The first, Councilman Deal, I agree with you. As someone who was running for office during the 2017 election, I can promise you, swear to you, that there was, from at least, I can only speak for myself, there was no overlap. I've never met with a member of the Unity team to strategize with them. I was not a part of that campaign, wanted nothing to do with that campaign at all whatsoever, nor did I ever meet with any individual related to that campaign about my campaign. So there is no overlap. The other thing is Councilman Deal and I have been asking for this committee since I took office, which was January of 2018. took months to get to this point where we are. And I understand that some people may question why was their name brought up in the first place. Just like you said, everyone can be a witness. Now, the interesting thing about this committee is that everything happens publicly. So when we get testimony, we have to use the testimony that's given to us, and so it's almost a live feed. It is a live feed of everyone gets everything that we get at the same time. Now, I can proudly say, or I will say, that I'm proud of this committee because we've gotten farther. Mr. Comer's testimony alone and his evidence has brought us further than the Attorney General's office, perhaps, the county prosecutor's office or the FBI or any other law enforcement agency. So are there parts where it seems a little unusual? That's up to the people to decide. But in terms of the sheer facts and information, we have gotten further than any law enforcement agency in the state. So that is why I do want to continue pursuing this, and I am proud of this. So it's the only thing that I had to say.
I'd like to thank Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagia, for attending tonight.
Thank you.
You may go. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Council
Thank you,
President?
Council.
Yes, sir.
I don't believe we have any more witnesses tonight, but I would like to discuss how to proceed procedurally. I know there was a motion before by Councilman Deal, and I have to agree, I'm growing very tired of what I deem to be a cat and mouse game in terms of when you can make it to testify. My suggestion would be that we contact Mr. Shee's attorney, Mr. Colello, and Mr. Ahmad's attorney, Mr. Shaw, and get an idea from them, both the attorneys, and Mr. Shee and Mr. Ahmad, whether they have any future travel plans in the next 30 to 45 days. Assuming there's no future travel plans by either them or their attorneys, and barring any Board of Education meeting, this council should pick a date within the next 30 to 45 days. And again, like the motion by Mr. Deal, if they fail to appear for whatever reason, our attorney should go in on an order to show cause and verified complaint and seek the appropriate relief from the Superior Court of New Jersey.
Do it now. Do it now.
Sir?
And I know there's some calls to do it now.
Right.
However, I don't know that a court or a judge, an attorney did give notice, albeit untimely notice, that that person was away or the attorney couldn't make it. I don't know that a court would, order them to appear. He may order them to appear at the next hearing,
Right.
But because they did give an indication prior to the meeting itself,
Right.
I feel that we should give them one last opportunity and get dates, not get dates from them, but confirm that there's no other vacations in the near future.
Right. Councilman, I couldn't agree with you more. I know there's calls tonight to do it right away. I think a couple things are important here, and that is because, as Councilman Joshi pointed out, we are in new territory here. This is like a live thing. It kind of feeds itself. We find information and we pursue more information. But I think it's important from our end that we continue to be fair to the people and not put them in a position where they can't show up. At the same time, I am just as frustrated with the cat and mouse game as you stated, and our counselor called it a little bit of gamesmanship. To me, it seems that way. These are people that usually make meetings, but suddenly they can't make this meeting when there's all kinds of notice. So I would suggest that we give them one last opportunity, that we find out if they have travel plans, that we offer a couple dates that may be suitable for them to appear. And at that point, that's it. At that point, if they're not coming, then we pursue what we said we would do.
To our counsel, I know you said that we can take them to court, possibly get to a point where they're in contempt of court. Can you specify or clarify what ruling a judge could possibly have, just for the public's knowledge?
Well, the nature of the relief would be largely up to the judicial discretion, but would essentially involve finding someone in contempt of court, and there could be financial penalties as well as additional penalties designed to compel their attendance.
Got it, thanks. And which court would they have to go to?
The Superior Court of Middlesex County.
Okay.
That's all I have.
I have nothing further, Council.
Anything else? We will continue to keep this meeting open. We are not formally closing it. So until we reconvene again, we will publish the dates once we get confirmations and reconvene at that time. Thank you all for coming here tonight.
And thank you, too.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting stands adjourned.